These clips are taken from Douglas Murray's debate with a woke activist from Holland. This woman believes the whole world should bend to her will.
Thousands of progressive but mainly moderate Dutch people came together to protest Black Pete. For those of you who don't know, Black Pete is the much debated racist blackface character, part of the Dutch tradition of Sinterklaas, our Dutch version of Santa Claus. Supposed to be a yearly celebration of childhood innocence, Sinterklaas, a white saint, comes to town with his blackface helpers, who apparently are black from going through the chimney and leaving presents in children's shoes. Because a growing number of Dutch people claim that after 150 years it's time to say goodbye to blackface, stereotyping black people and people of color and using colonial references to do so. The irony is that the mere reason my friends, party members and comrades were so brutally attacked in the first place is because of exercising their right to the freedom of speech by claiming that Black Pete is a racist caricature character. And I see no lie in that. Yet still, people, some of them politicians, some of them columnists, some of them journalists, some of them neo-Nazi hooligans are trying to silence us in speaking our truth.
She wants something banned for being racist, though she has just admitted it's not racist. They paint their faces black because it's an age-old Dutch Christmas tradition to represent Santa's helpers who were covered in soot from going down the chimney. It couldn't be any less racist. This is just an attack on Dutch traditions. Anything she doesn't like must be racist, therefore must be banned.
So, for instance, let me give one very quick example. I did this on the BBC the other week, that this issue came up with this pop singer Sam Smith, who described himself as non-binary. And I got into a certain amount of trouble that didn't bother me, but because I said I don't think there's any such thing, or at least no one's explained what it is sufficiently for me to agree to it. Now, I know from feedback, including feedback in the studio from certain people at the BBC, that this is not an unpopular thing to say. I would think that if you went out to the general public and said, do you think there are people who are non-binary, and if so, can you say what they are? You'd get a fragment of 1% of people able to say that. And so my point on that is not that I've closed the argument on that, but we haven't had the argument on a whole set of things, and it seems only to be a few people who do have a voice in public who can have it.
Silvana, you're nodding your head, not in agreement.
Because I'm always surprised that certain people feel that they need to give their okay for other people to be or think something they don't necessarily understand. It doesn't matter whether I understand the beauty of physical love between two men. There's no point. You don't need my permission to feel and act. So why does Sam Smith or anybody else who considers himself non-binary needs permission from whoever? All that is up to us is to say, if this is important to you, and it does not affect me in any type of way, in any type of negative way, I'm going to respect that. So if you say that you're offended by blackface every year, then I don't need to understand how come you're offended. All I need to do is say, this is not my intention. How can I fix it? And if you say you can fix it by stop acting that way, then that's what I'll do, because there is no point. People don't need your permission to be whoever they want to be.
I think it's slightly more complex than that, if I can say so.
Of course.
Let me give one reason why. Actually, the Sam Smith thing was significant. Again, sorry to go on about the BBC. The BBC's reporting of that immediately did what he asked, which was that they changed the pronouns. And some people think this isn't a big thing. Some of us do get a bit stuck on this.
I'm only interrupt you just so everybody is up to speed with the sense of, instead of he, she, him, her, non-binary people often want to use they, them. So it would be...
So my point was simply that if you haven't actually had this out in public, you haven't actually discussed much of it, it's a bit strange that a major news organisation would slip into saying exactly what a person had asked themselves to be described as simply because they had asked for it.
Sounds like respect to me.
It's not
nothing more, nothing less.
It's not the same thing as respect because it's something which we haven't had out. He himself said, I don't know what it means to be non-binary. So my suggestion was he should go away and think about it. And in the meantime, we shouldn't all mutilate the language to fit around him.
Why? If I come on this stage and I say to you, I would prefer for you to call me Mr. Simons, why is it a problem to you to just give me that respect?
But well, I'm afraid that because I care about the language, I didn't particularly want to say they was very good in their performance last night.
Well,
I'm not going to do it.
Again, talking complete utter nonsense. If the indigenous peoples have traditions which are clearly not racist, then it is for the people moving there to tolerate them. If the people themselves decide they want to change their traditions, that's fine. But if it's the people moving there who demand it should be changed and try and force that change against the majority of population's will, that's not multiculturalism or diversity or inclusion, that's a takeover. It's a group coming in and demanding you change to their way of thinking. She's basically saying anytime she finds anything offensive, it's everyone else's responsibility to change to suit her. And she will always be looking for something to find offence in. If you give in to it, you'll have no traditions left. As Douglas Murray said, Sam Smith is free to call himself whatever he likes, but it doesn't mean the world has to adhere to it, especially when it changes all the time. I've left the link to the full debate in the description. It just shows us the utter insanity of this woke nonsense. Thank God there are people like Douglas Murray around